Before I give Rashid an opportunity to close or wrap up the discussion, I need to make an announcement that there is a poll for the attendees to please respond to that, to get some feedback. Over to you, Rashid, to give us some closing remarks.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you very much again. I should say good afternoon to those that may have joined us a little late. So what I've done is that I've actually tried to synthesize as much as possible from the discussion without repeating the thing. So pulling out what are some of the key themes and issues I think that need to be taken forward without regurgitating anything. So I hope I'm able to do that. Unfortunately, I was not in a position to attend yesterday, so I'm assuming that some of that happened at the end of yesterday's session.
Yeah.
And I know today was a much more focused session in relation to what we've been discussing all day. So let me start, and I've got a couple of points. So the first is the issue of partnership, and I think it's this whole process would not have been possible had there not been partnership. And Subethri just spoke about that particular issue earlier on as well. But I think we need to be specific and thank GTAC and National Treasury for coming to the party, so to speak. The National Research Foundation in the earlier work that we had done, the Canadian Global Affairs, and of course Gauteng Provincial Government. I know my colleagues Ismail and Carmel, who you've seen, have been from our side, have been driving that process. I usually get the glory, but they were doing the hard work. So thanks very much to everyone. I mean, the point of partnership is very simple. It creates a synergy. You know, synergy is 1 + 1 is equal to 3. And I think that's what we've been able to achieve, not only in this process, but in some of the previous processes and products that have been generated through this process. So I'm talking about the case study that was done. Ours is the most extensive case study that was done. And it gave us profound insights. I mean, we had an all-day workshop a couple of Fridays ago, and I think what was gleaned from there was absolutely phenomenal. And the work that's in progress, what Angela was showing you, I think is another example of that. So again, thank you very much. I'm not going to thank you at the end again. So please note the appreciation, the deep appreciation from the part of the DG, who, by the way, our acting DG, Mr. Thabo Masebe, has been fully briefed. In fact, this matter went to the executive management team meeting on Monday from our side, and we briefed them on what was going to happen. They have a very extensive West Rand engagement with the Premier, and I asked that I could come here. So anyway, that's the thing. So the second, I think, issue that I want to raise is the issue about the learning organization. I think that's been one of the themes that have predominated the discussion today. But let me say that you know, the realization came fairly early on that we needed to kind of reflect on what was happening during the period of the pandemic. Now, I mean, I think when it hit us, I mean, for many people, it was like a great defining moment in human history. Like the Second World War, I mean, I wasn't born then, the Great Depression in 1929, I mean, the things that we've learned about in our history books. And I think we have to, and the COVID pandemic on a global basis has had a similar impact. And I think the fact that we were able to catch on early enough and say, let's record what's happening, not only record it in the sense of the history of it, but also what we can learn from that process. And I think, I mean, I think we were very lucky as Gauteng to have done that extensive work that I mentioned earlier on, and it will be there for posterity. And I think it's no mean feat. Our children and grandchildren can learn from this. I mean, that's the significance of the pandemic. And the problem with the pandemic is not like we thought in the early days, that there's going to be herd immunity and then everyone will be all la 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 after we get the vaccination. I mean, what we found is a curved ball in the form of all these, what do you call them, the different variants of the virus, and that creates a great deal of uncertainty. But I think, as history is unfolding, is before our eyes, at least we are basically recording that. But the point about it is that we're actually recording it and also learning from it, and that's, I think, the whole issue that has come about in relation to the learning organization. So I think that's been an important part of what we're doing, basically to build the institutional capacity of the state. I think that's what our agenda is. How do we learn within the provincial government in Gauteng, but amongst ourselves, between provinces and national government, and by the way also with municipalities, because we're working with municipalities on an ongoing basis in relation to these matters. So I think that the learning for government is all round. I should also say, in fact, and throw it in, that our collaboration with the private sector and NGOs have also increased. So it's also about what's happening in civil society. And in fact, there have been many missteps with our relationship with civil society. And I can tell you, I mean, for example, in the early days of lockdown, when a lot of people were out of jobs and didn't have food and so on, NGOs were coming to the fore to assist. They wanted to work with government, and we were unable to do so effectively enough to really sort of synergize our efforts, and we were not able to do that. So I think that's an important learning going forward. And the NGOs that did the work and service communities directly did a fantastic job. So I think that for me is another issue. Then, I mean, the issue around what you've heard us speaking about in Gauteng, I mean, the emphasis on the center of government. And I think that for me is a very important thing. I mean, the idea has evolved over time. It certainly predates the pandemic. In the last term of office in Gauteng, we had, we used to call it the nerve center and various things like that. But there's been a sort of a global agreement that the term you're talking about is center of government. You saw Ismail's presentation earlier on. So even the World Bank and OECD and many major multilateral organizations are beginning to understand that this idea is very important to drive government, going forward. And just, I mean, I was unable to say this to Michael Sachs, but because he was saying it should be broader than the offices of the Premier or the Presidency or mayors, we in fact have already, our conceptualization includes some of those departments. But at the same time, we remain as the apex of the center of government. So I think that the sort of the sharp edge of the wedge, as it were, but the others are play important supportive roles. And it's very intimately linked, not only in our context, but if you look at the global literature on this matter, to this idea of delivery units, and delivery units playing a central role in forging center of government roles, very proactive center of government roles. I should say the Premier loves this idea and in fact has created the conditions within the provincial government system for us to enable us to do this work. And in other words, it's not like, we've got MECs, HODs, and I think the legitimacy that is required for that is very much there. And I think it's something that we could share later on with other provinces in terms of the learning experience. But the fact that it comes from the top, I think, it makes our life infinitely easier. I think I'm not going to talk too much about the learning networks, the networks question. I think we just concluded on that matter, and I think, but let me endorse that issue. I also don't want to spend too much time on repeating the points around governance and leadership that came through from some of the presentations like Rob and Graham and even Angela's sort of intervention and so on. I think all of those things are the sorts of things that we will be taking forward in a systematic way. I think that it boils down to this idea of evidence-based policy and decision making. So in other words, what comes through from research and so on basically finds its way into policy. I mean, and I think it's not a mechanical, automatic thing. You have to forge it, and it has to happen. There are many conditions. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and this colleague from Mistra, who was saying that what they do is that whenever they work on a major kind of policy research paper, they just send a 2 or 3 page policy brief to the relevant minister and DG and so on. That's just one mechanism, but there are many mechanisms. And their job, like unlike say the GCRO and other places which are or GTAC, which is much closer to government or within government, I think that the idea of sensitizing the leadership. When I say leadership, not only the political leadership, including the administrative leadership, to say, I mean, this is what the evidence is saying, and can we begin to shift to respond adequately to that? So I think that's quite an important way of looking at things. I'm going to finish soon. So the next issue is the issue of integration, and I've always said for many years in government that the holy grail in government is integration. You look for it, it's there somewhere, but you never quite get it. Okay. So, I mean, the Holy Grail will continue to be there, but can we get to it as closely as possible? And so we can begin to forge that kind of integration going forward. And this is at all levels between different spheres, blah, blah, blah. And we have to work out on an ongoing basis what are the mechanisms that would enable us to do that. Now, the one thing that's very much on the agenda is the district development model. It's very much in its early stages. I know that it's being punted all over the place, but let us make it work. And because there have been many such initiatives in the past, but I think we can't give up. And the lessons that we've learned in this process, let us basically pick up on using that to inform the district development model. I just wanted to respond also to some extent to Boitumelo, who made the point about parallel structures. And I think there's a nuance there. And the nuance for me, and this is about how does one work. And Sean also made a comment about it earlier on. The issue is that, yes, we must absolutely use the structures that exist in others, or the departments and the hierarchies, because that's where the legal responsibilities lie. That's where the procurement responsibilities lie. That's where you have the capacity to do the work. Okay. Now, if we come and we basically sort of try and impose things from the center of government idea, impose it on departments and not get them to build their capacity to do the work, we're actually wasting time. So, but the only point I wanted to make is that what happened in the case of the COVID response is that we were, and this includes national government. I mean, we've got, for example, the provincial, the National Command Council, for example, on COVID. So you can say, well, why do you have that? That's a parallel structure. We have equivalent structures and so on. So, but for me, actually in Gauteng, what we did with what was reported earlier on in the conversation was this idea of a project management office, the PMO. For me, that's a kind of exoskeleton, if you like. I mean, external skeleton to support the endoskeleton which is within government departments. So let's use that kind of metaphor to understand how we support it. It's a bit like Terminator and all this kind of dystopian, superheroes that have additional appendages that support them. Think about it. I'm not really a fan of that kind of stuff, but I mean, I'm just thinking of an odd example to make some people laugh here. So, but is that kind of idea that we need to think about, about how we think about parallel structures. But let us not put absolutes in everything. You see this thing about don't use parallel structures, don't do it. It doesn't work like that in the real world. So the final point, and let me conclude on this one, is that we have to be, in all of these things, we have to be mindful of the simple fact that we want to transform government and society. And all of these things is about the noble objectives that we have in our policy documents, in the Freedom Charter, in the Constitution, and all of these things to basically improve the quality of life of people, to address poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And so, I think we can get so wrapped up with everything, but let us look at the ultimate outcomes that we're talking about. And for me, I mean, that is the fundamental challenge that we face. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you very much, Rashid. That brings us to the end of the session today. There are some few announcements I need to make, is that the presentations, the recordings will be available on the same site where you registered for the workshop. The poll would love for you to give us some feedback. Please participate in the poll. And lastly, if there are any queries, please contact Anita at GTAC for any queries whatsoever. It's been wonderful 1.5 days and lots of lessons that came through, from adaptive governance to collaboration to the learning networks and evidence-based approach to dealing with matters of this nature. Thank you very much for everybody who participated, the panelists, as well as my colleagues in studio. It's been wonderful. Thank you. Have a lovely day and enjoy your weekend.